So my students in my creativity class are starting to do their literature reviews as part of their major project. These are DBA students. They're not trained very deeply in academic research. And so a lot of times this sort of literature search can be challenging at the get-go. It can be tough to find the right sources, reputable sources, some of the key sources that they need to begin with. And there's a lot of tools out there. So I wanted to share two that I find particularly useful or interesting for getting a literature search started and the purpose of doing a literature review. So the first that I'm going to share here is ChatGPT. Obviously, this is really new in a lot of ways, and I'm just starting to find ways to use this for literature search. But I've had pretty good luck with it, and I wanted to share some of these tools, some of how to use this tool, I should say. Now, I'm going to start with typing into ChatGPT, and if you aren't using ChatGPT, you need to log in, create an account. That's at chat.openai.com. I'm going to start with a simple prompt asking it to create an annotated bibliography of implicit theories with articles from top academic journals. Now, implicit theories, very important theoretical perspective on motivation. It's been used in creativity research a lot, so I think it's a good sample to play around with. There are a lot of resources to get students started reading about implicit theories. This isn't, some hidden theory, but I think because it's a little bit better known, nice place to start. Now, when we just type in that simple command, it's giving us looks like 5 citations, and just looking at these are pretty good. Now, I've had trouble with the number of citations in a bibliography. Sometimes I get 7 or 8. Typically, I don't usually get more than that. This time, just 5. But these are solid sources from the looks of it. I'm just giving it a quick look here. But these look like important sources. You can see that these are all, most of these are from Carol Dweck herself, so you might want to diversify that, and you would click regenerate responses if you wanted to try kind of a new bibliography, and let's try that out now. And so it's going to create a new one, and we're just going to see if this is, a little bit closer to what we're looking for or not. You can see a couple things are sort of reformatted, but otherwise this is a pretty solid looking annotated bibliography. It's giving us the citations and a little blurb about each one. Now, ways that we can make this even better, we might put this into chronological order and APA format. Now, I have I've been using kind of an object approach here and calling this AP1 or AB for annotated bibliography 1. So ChatGPT isn't handling this super well, but I want to keep trying it out. So if this is AB1, then hopefully when we call it back, and say in the format of AB1 or change AB1 to this or that, it's going to get that idea. It's doing okay with that, but not terribly well. But we see here, now we've got this same list. It's an APA format, and it is in chronological order. So we're in good shape here. So if I want to kick this up a notch, I can say now put AP1 into a table with columns for citation and annotation. It's doing just that, as you can see. So this would be the same list, but it's just a little bit better organized. And one thing I thought would be interesting to try is to then ask ChatGPT to add another column with the citations, number of citations to each of these references, I guess, to each of these citations. Now, what I found trying this a couple times is that I'll get very different citation counts for these, and I'll show you how this works in a second here. So you see the 1999 has 15,241. If I regenerate these responses, I ask it to do the same thing again. What I think I'm going to get is, very, very different number of citations. So I'm not sure what's causing that, but what I think it means is that ChatGPT right now, summer of 2023, isn't quite ready to be relied on for things like number of citations. And honestly, I would double check it even in terms of the numbers in the citation. It should be very good at giving you the actual citation, but you might want to use the citation from the actual article, as you can pull out through something like Zotero. So there's other kinds of analyses you can throw in there. I asked ChatGPT to do things like find how many of the citations have progressive tense verbs in them, things ending in ing, approaching, regulating, these sorts of things. It did okay with that, but again, I don't think it's ready to replace something like Luke here. Let's keep it going. So we've now got a good reading list for the summer. So a student who is working on implicit theories and their connection to creativity might go through here and look for their summer reading list, the articles that they should be going through. Those citations may not be helping much, but the number of citations, the citations themselves, the annotations, seem to be doing well. This is a good list. But let's try and make that even more interesting. So I've added here another line saying, look, using the same format that we were just using, write an annotated bibliography of meta-analyses of implicit theories. So now, rather than just looking at any articles, we're looking at just meta-analyses on implicit theories. And this, to me, is really much more interesting than that first one. So there's lots of reviews of papers you can find out there. There aren't many reviews of meta-analyses where you can just pull these out. And so this is where, to me, it's getting more exciting to think about meta-analyses on implicit theories. But you notice, we're talking about a creativity class. We're still at kind of general meta-analyses about implicit theories. So in this one, I'm going to say now change that to an annotated bibliography of meta-analyses of implicit theories and creativity, and label that AB3 now. So now these should all be meta-analyses, and all meta-analyses about implicit theories and creativity. And from the looks of it, and when I've run this before, that's just what we're getting. And these are pretty up to date, 2021, 2022. These look really good, and these look really interesting. So I think this is where it's getting more exciting to me. How would you find this really tailored list of meta-analyses connecting implicit theories and creativity? I don't know where I would look for that list. So I think this is looking really good. So this could be my summer reading for as well. Now, what we've got so far, like we said, is this sort of summer reading list to look at implicit theories and creativity. One more thing I would show you here to help tie this together is actually converting this from just an annotated bibliography into a proper literature review. So if I ask ChatGPT, use the articles from AB3 to write a cited literature review and label it LR1. So this is what I'm getting. And it's actually taking those same meta-analyses that we had from that last table that we made and putting it into a much more narrative format. So here I've got a walkthrough of how these connect to each other. So, sometimes you do need to tell it to finish sort of what it started here. This is not perfect, but this, from what I've looked at with these, it's a good way to connect the dots between the different articles that you're finding. And ChatGPT is actually talking about things like, well, even though they didn't find this, this other thing was very important. And I find that really interesting. And it's possible to, again, regenerate it if you weren't sure about the first one. When I've done these a couple times now, some of the times it actually marks the introduction and then sort of the main points that it goes through. I would say, if you've got a list that you like here, try it 2 or 3 times and see which literature review sort of, catches your fancy a little bit better. Why not? Here's my third try, and ChatGPT is going to ask me sort of, well, which one do you like best? And I'm obviously not reading those through right now. But we can see that what we're getting is something that's connecting the dots on all of these different seemingly good citations. Now, what we've got here right now, as opposed to the summer reading list, is something more akin to, a Wikipedia entry, a short article. I mean, this is like, maybe a page and a half of actual text on the subject. So it's not very deep. But so I think that students could refer to this, but notice how they might use this. So could you just copy and paste this into the literature review section of a research paper? Well, interestingly, from my point of view, what we've got here doesn't belong to anybody. You can't really say somebody wrote this, and so you wouldn't necessarily be plagiarizing somebody if you were to copy and paste this into your own paper. At the same time, though, you couldn't call this your own work, right? If that difference makes sense. So it would be inauthentic to say, I wrote this if you copied and pasted it. It would be, you wouldn't need to say that, we wouldn't call that plagiarism. You're not copying it from some great thinker or somebody who's already written this. This is original in the sense that it comes from ChatGPT, but it's not your work. So I would say to any of my students looking at this, thinking about, can I copy and paste this? This is, it's not bad. It connects a lot of dots. But if you, as one of my students, haven't read through these articles, if you aren't able to connect these dots yourselves, then really you don't have any space to talk about these in your own research paper. You wouldn't want to stick your neck out on this, especially if ChatGPT is wrong about something or it's misunderstood something. So that's just a little bit on, I think, how students might want to approach this kind of literature review. All right, so we've looked at kind of how to do a literature search. We said that the more specific you can get, the more interesting, exciting I think the lists seem to get to me. So what would be kind of a bad use of this where you're maybe not getting a good result? Well, sometimes topics that are so broad or too broad. Now, topic that I've been interested in within creativity is differences between how creativity manifests, how it's conceptualized, how it's managed between the East and the West. I lived in China for a long time. I've written on intercultural communication before, and it's really interesting to compare how things like creativity work somewhere like China versus somewhere like the US. So what if I just plug in a simple prompt saying, using the format of AB3, remember I'm referring back to this AB3 annotated bibliography 3 object, which it's kind of getting, it seems like, write an annotated bibliography of, quote, East versus West, and label it AB4. So that's all that I've said. Give me an annotated bibliography of East versus West. And what I'm getting back here, and what I've gotten when I've tried this before, are very, very broad, mostly intercultural text. So Hofstede's 1980 book, absolutely one of the top of the field, but very dated at this point. And most of these are good sort of classical works. But if I'm thinking particularly about creativity, this really isn't going to be what I'm looking for. This would just be too broad unless I was really looking to go back to the very basics. So for this kind of very broad or almost mislabeled topic, I think ChatGPT is not working. Now, if I go into the Encyclopedia of Creativity, then they actually do have a section called East versus West, but they've written their entry particularly for the Encyclopedia of Creativity, and they know that East versus West is always in reference to creativity. So how might I convey that to ChatGPT? Simple. I'm going to tell it change AB4 to an annotated bibliography of, quote, differences in managing creativity between East versus West. And now I'm getting much more targeted articles, Journal of Management, Applied Psychology, Academy of Management Journal. When I tried this before, I was getting a lot from Journal of Applied Psychology. And these, look good, just doing a cursory look here. So, so the more refined you can make your search, I think the better results you're going to get. Now, let's look quickly at this other tool, ResearchRabbit. So once you've got this reading list, I've got here, reading list on sort of creativity across creativity management across East and West. Let me try and see. Let me try and see how I can plug this into ResearchRabbit. Now, before I start with ResearchRabbit, I'm going to do one more thing here, which is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me just the DOI numbers for these citations that it just gave me for that table it just gave me. And you see here, now they're giving me the whole citations. Is a little bit unstable. And I'm going to tell it, just give me the DOI number without the whole citation. And here it is. There's one on here that is not applicable, but I'm going to copy these in. And now ResearchRabbit, if you haven't used before, is a really neat tool that I like a lot. And it's great for finding articles that are kind of related to the articles that you've got, that you have in your hand that you like, but something maybe further abroad than what you've got. So it's good for broadening your search once you've found some articles that you like. So first thing you do here, and this is, by the way, if you can't read this, researchrabbitapp.com, all one word, researchrabbitapp.com. First thing you do here is you want to create a collection, and I'm going to call this East versus West in creativity. You can download or load libraries from Zotero, which is super if you're using Zotero. That's how I would prefer to use this actually, but for now we're going to keep it kind of simple. And ResearchRabbit likes DOIs a bit better than full article titles, so we're going to do that for it, and it also does better one by one, so I'm just going to do that now. And each article that I add in is one of those articles that we just pulled off of ChatGPT. So should get 4 of these here. This one has got a retraction out here. So let's leave that one out, actually. I don't want to get into that one for the time being. That's interesting that ChatGPT, I haven't looked at that one just now, but it's interesting that ChatGPT pulled an article that looks like it might have gotten a retraction. That'd be kind of worrisome. And last one. All right, so we've got 3 articles in here. These should all be around the topic of managing creativity across East and West. And these are all pretty old articles, 1987, 1991, 2001. So they might be fairly connected. Yeah, and you see what ResearchRabbit likes to do is it's going to create this network around the articles based on the articles that you input. So the green nodes here are the articles that you've put in. And you can see that this Marcus 1991 and the Nesbitt 2001 are connected in a broader network. The Elliott 1987 is kind of off doing its own thing. So what I might want to do is start looking for, if I liked the Marcus and I like the Nesbitt, I might want to start looking through here for articles that sort of connect with both of them, why they're connected with both of them, and kind of go out to, extremes on this map. So I might look at, this bond over here, and this is a meta-analysis from 1996. Looks interesting. I can add that to my reading list. And in fact, you can go through here and add this to Zotero if you want to as a citation, or you can, and what I'm going to show you here, you can add this to that, what do we call that? We can add that to the collection, and then it becomes sort of a part of the network. Now, since these 4 citations are really pretty old, what I'm actually going to look for is more recent articles, so later articles than those 4, and this is going to focus down that search onto articles really from later than 2001, which is quite that's a lot of time to cover. But you can see here with ChatGPT, we were looking for some of the top articles on the topic that we were looking for, and as we start to find some of those key articles, we were condensing down that list by adding some more criteria. We added things like, well, just meta-analyses on that topic, and then just meta-analyses between that topic and this other key construct that we want. And we were able to get more and more refined and more, I think, interesting, sort of tailor-made literature reviews and annotated bibliographies. I think it would be very tough to find an annotated bibliography or literature review of just meta-analyses on intrinsic beliefs and creativity. Maybe out there, I think it would be tough to find, and I think the fact that you can just pop that into ChatGPT is pretty amazing. Now, once you've got that list from ChatGPT or from wherever, maybe from a key article that you've read, maybe from something like the Encyclopedia of Creativity, once you've pulled those articles, throwing them into ResearchRabbit is a good way to expand that list to a much wider network. So you're able to get some more articles that, again, are sort of hot in that area. By the way, these nodes are really looking at the number of citations to some of these. So you're getting pretty well, at least well cited, if not well respected articles on that field. And you can feel a little bit more confident in the kinds of articles that you're getting, rather than just sort of starting with a Google Scholar search, which can oftentimes give you who knows what. So between OpenAI and ResearchRabbit, I think those are 2 really great tools for getting into the literature that you're researching. I don't think either one writes the paper for you, nor should they. But these are great ways for you to become an expert on a topic that you're looking into much more quickly than you might have been able to do in the past. So I think these are great tools. Really recommend them to everyone. Thanks a lot.